Hi, good day, good night, good evening, depending on what time you happen to be watching this. Welcome to another episode of House of Stars. I'm your girl Star, and today, as you can see, I am not reading on anybody today. I am going to talk about something that we deal with on a yearly basis. Depending on what it is, it affects us at least 3 to 4 times a year. And this year, it caught me off guard because I wasn't paying attention. It was only till last week where I started to feel this raging feeling of anxiety. And I'm an energy channeler. And if anyone knows or anyone's familiar with energy channelers, we shift to the planets and the moon phases. So I always know when a shift is about to come up. I always know when a moon phase is about to start, or whatever the case may be, based on my sleeping pattern, based on my anxiety level, or how I feel. I usually know when there is about to be a shift. One of the big ones and the most popular ones that people are very familiar with, even if you're not a person that's not really big into astrology, is the Mercury retrograde. So what I'm going to talk about right now, because we actually are going through these 3 retrogrades right now, and I found they were really interesting just because I find a lot of people that I've been, a lot of my clients that have been coming to me, a lot of the things that have been happening in their life in this moment are huge effects of these retrogrades, which is Mercury, Saturn, and Venus. And I've been going through them as well. I've been, next to the fact of being pregnant, I've been really emotional for the past week. Like, it's not even like an emotional on a level of like what's happening present, but literally I am going through and feeling and allowing myself to touch every aspect of myself, even things and wounds maybe I thought that were healed that needed to be healed, or maybe even thought processes that I have that hinder my progression, made it hard for me to move forward. So I'm going to touch base on the Mercury retrograde, the Saturn retrograde, and the Venus retrograde. First, I'm going to talk about what is the Mercury retrograde, Saturn retrograde, and Venus retrograde. Okay, so when it comes to Mercury, the planet Mercury is associated with electronics, communication. It is an air-based element, or air-based. It falls under the element of air. So meaning that affects your internet, transportation, your phone, for communication. And when I say communication, it could be even face-to-face, projects that you may work on. It affects all those things. Now, one thing that happened to me recently, because of the Mercury retrogrades, now I usually feel the Mercury retrograde in the shadow period, which the shadow period has started on the March 26th. So Mercury retrograde doesn't actually technically start till the 9th, and it runs until May 3rd of this year. So what you guys have probably been feeling is your internet either has been messing up. Like for example, like 2 weeks, last week, my internet, all of a sudden, the internet in my area shut down. So that was one problem. So obviously I couldn't work because I used the internet to actually work. So I couldn't work, and I was like, hey, what the heck is going on? Like with this internet, like when's the internet gonna get fixed? So once that actually got fixed, everything was cool. The second problem was that my modem actually kicked. I've had this modem for at least 4 years. I know it was bound to happen eventually because it's been a while since I had it. They were actually shocked that we had it still, but at the same time, it just friggin' kicked on me. And I was like, really now? Okay. And what actually put insult to injury is that was one day. The second day, my modem kicked because the plug wasn't working. I went to the store, bought a new plug, went out of my way, bought a new plug, came back saying, okay, all right, now it should work. And it still wasn't working, only to call the company, and the company saying that we actually took that old modem off of your profile, which is very weird and very rare because we usually don't do that. We usually wait until we give you the new product first before we take the old one off your profile. So now I went 2 days losing internet, meaning 2 days where I couldn't really work, and it caused some issue for me to work. Okay, so that was a next Mercury retrograde situation. At this time, I wasn't really sure. I was like, I remember talking to my friend. I'm like, isn't the Mercury retrograde coming up? And she's like, I don't know, because I'm the one that tells her. And she's like, oh, I don't know, like, you know. But I'm like, no, too much shit's been happening. It's like, it has such a Mercury retrograde vibe how it happened. But okay, it's probably nothing. And then the next thing that happened was I had my phone. And, you know, I've dropped my phone sometimes, whatever the case may be. But my phone literally like grazed, I swear, not even an inch. It wasn't even an inch off the ground. You know what I mean? And it just just grazed. And my fucking phone kicked. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Now, anybody knows the pain. What happens is, of course, when you have a Samsung, how much it costs to fix that? So after having a lovely day and, you know, planning my day out and things are supposed to go great, I'm supposed to get all this stuff set up for the baby, boom, my phone breaks and it costs me $200 off rip to get it fixed. Of course, I can't say no to that. I had to do it, so I did. So that was the next Mercury retrograde situation, and I was just like, fuck. I'm going to go online and I'm going to take a look and see if it's really Mercury retrograde, because I don't know how the Ross I could be this salt. I looked, and of course, we're in the shadow period. Mercury retrograde is going to start on April 9th. Makes total sense. Now, one thing that I always hear, this is a warning about Mercury retrograde. Of course, a Mercury retrograde does have a really bad rap, especially because everyone knows a lot of inconveniences, delays, and bullshit happened during that time. But Mercury retrograde is also a very good time to take the time to actually reflect or finish up or tie up loose ends to tasks that you've had in the past that needed to be done. Okay, I find that Mercury retrograde is usually a time where I actually go back over a layer of something, whether it be mental, emotional. You would figure this, I would say more mental, but something more mental or something that is plaguing the mind, where you take that time to actually go over it, assess it, and actually put what needs to be put to rest. Again, if that's one thing that on the mental part. Now, when it comes on the physical aspect, say if you have a project that needs to be done, that you've been putting off, like maybe you're like, I don't know, you could be, I don't know, fucking crocheting a friggin' sweater, and you know, it's taking you months to actually get it done. This is probably the best time to actually complete that task. Now, in the same breath, when it comes to doing projects or starting anything new, this is not the time for that, because chances are you are going to have some problems with communication. So miscommunicating what your tasks are, miscommunicating how things are supposed to be completed, or even you can have a situation where something happens with your electronics during that time. Another thing too, what is not good for during the Mercury retrograde is signing a contract. Now, usually if you were so let's say if you were planning to, before the Mercury retrograde, say like it's for a car, but still be careful. Cars, transportation, all those things are all affected. So say, for example, you've been looking at a car, you went to go talk to somebody 3-4 weeks ago, outside of the shadow period or whatever, and you were going to pay for this car or put money down in it, but the problem was you didn't have all the money together, so you actually decided you finally got paid this week or a week during the Mercury retrograde, and now you're finally paying it, you're signing it and everything. That is different, okay, because you actually took the time to look over the contract, to go over what needed to be gone over in a time where you weren't affected mentally in any way or verbally in any way, because of course when it comes to mental, air, when it comes to verbal communication, air is all affected by Mercury. So you get what I'm saying? So that's where it's like, I just say don't do things. It wouldn't be right to do things dead on during the Mercury retrograde. So that's stuff I see with the Mercury retrograde. Now I'm going to go into Saturn retrograde, which actually is starting on the 16th of August. The 16th of April running till August 25th. So that's a pretty friggin' long retrograde. Now, when it comes to Saturn retrograde, of course, it does, it's still a very powerful retrograde regardless of what. But at the same time, it's not something that, it's not a retrograde that affects everybody universally, depending on what we're talking about. Now, Saturn is the planet that is of fire, I believe. Is it a fire energy? I don't know if it's fire. Yeah, it is fire. It can't be earth, or it can't be water. It's fire. Of a fire energy, and it is associated with the Lord of Karma. So Saturn retrograde is associated with dealing with past life karma, past life debts, karma being restored, whether it be bad or good. What goes around comes around, all that good stuff. So when it comes to Saturn being in retrograde, this is a good time to go over and allowing yourself to connect into your inner self or in a peaceful place and going over the things that you've done wrong in your past. Now, if it's something that you've already forgiven yourself for, you already moved on, it's whatever it is what it is, then fuck it, who gives a shit? But usually this is a time to get, if you're a witch, it's a good time to get even. If you are a person that you want to be forgiven, this is a good time to actually take a chance or take some time to actually forgive yourself or forgive the person or forgiveness on any sort during this time. I find that on Saturn retrograde, also like this is a time as well for people that have gone through issues with somebody in the past. And it's funny because now that you see April 2016, April 9th, okay, Mercury retrograde will start on April 9th, and then Saturn retrograde starts on April 16th. So obviously, usually Saturn appears about a week to a week and a half before that time. Now, usually Mercury retrograde, I forgot to mention this, usually brings back people of the past. So if you have an old flame or an ex-friend or whatever the case it may be, or somebody you haven't talked to in a long time, that's usually a time when they start to try to reconnect with you. So imagine putting them in conjunction together, which is the Mercury retrograde and the Saturn retrograde. This is a time where people or somebody that you've had an issue with in the past, maybe you had a hard time letting go of it, or maybe you've done something to them and you've had a hard time moving on from what you've done to them. This is a time to settle the score. You know what I mean? Or this is a time where you got to pay your debts, whether it's you being in control how the debt is paid or the universe is in control how the debt is paid. This is the time, and when Saturn's in retrograde. So keep in mind as well, on the upside, if you've been a person that has done a lot of good deeds, done a lot to help people and encourage people, whatever the case may be, this is also a time where you start to reap your rewards. So that's what happens with Saturn Saturn's in retrograde. It's dealing with all through karma, and karma, life paths and past lives. Okay. So I found when I did when there was the last Saturn retrograde, which was sometime last year, around that time, I had a lot of people hitting me up for past life regressions, past life readings, things like that. So this also is a time where you can always venture out, get a past life reading or past life regression. So that way you are dealing with some old karma, or things that are in your records that no longer serve you anymore. Different ways you could do that. Sometimes you could even get cards, go doing it with meditation, or even going to a psychic, or also doing some Reiki work as well. So that's something that you can look into while Saturn is in retrograde. So conjuncting the two together, Mercury and Saturn, I'll say what I sense from everything that's happening, especially until May 3rd. The energy I'm getting is communication with a lot of people in the past. Settling the score for things that are in the past. And usually I feel like it's settling the score where it comes to... it also deals with the truth coming out, one. And two, allowing yourself to see things for what they really are. That's what I do see. Now, we are at the tail end This actually ends on the 15th, which is Venus retrograde. Okay. Now, Venus retrograde ran from March 4th to April 15th. So, like, we don't have that much time left in the retrograde. But it's kind of interesting. Well, it actually finishes on the 15th, and then after Saturn starts on the 16th. But keep in mind, for every planet that is in retrograde, once they start to go direct, there is a shadow period where there's like little kinks here and there. So now we're in Venus retrograde. Now Venus, as we know, deals with love, beauty, feminine energy, all the good stuff. So now when Venus is in retrograde, and I believe Venus has to do with air, because Venus is Libra. So I think, yeah, it has to do with air as well. When it comes to Venus now being in retrograde, you're going to deal with a lot of things that have to do with your love, self-love, and overall just the patterns that you've adapted to when it comes to your love life. So this is usually a good time, and I find I've been getting this a lot lately, not just for clients, but even myself, like reflecting on the patterns or the mythologies that you've created, allowing you to attract the same kind of people in your life, or the same kind of relationships in your life. So pretty much finding out what those issues are and, putting a close to them. This is not a good time to usually date. When I say date, I mean, it's not a good time to meet anybody new. Even if you decide to meet anybody new, it's not the best time to actually jump headfirst into a relationship, as things could be presented the way that they're not. You know what I mean? So keep in mind, retrograde usually means that the planet is moving away from the Earth. So it's things going backwards. So think about when something's going forward, what goes for you, and if it's going backward, what's going away from you. You understand? So yeah, that's what I do feel when it comes to Venus retrograde. It's like that's what it's touching a base on. Now, keep in mind, I feel like I would probably connect Mercury retrograde with Venus retrograde, considering that they are both running parallel for at least a good amount of time together, because they'll be running parallel. Well, the shadow period's already started, but from April 9th to the 15th, they will be running parallel together. So in conjunction with those two planets together, what I would sense from that is, of course, this also has to do with old flames again. That's brought up again, especially mental issues regarding love and communication as well. So the fact that they're both in retrograde, keep in mind that you may deal with a lot of quarrels that be happening, and those are for those that are attached. And when it comes to those that are looking to have a relationship with somebody or trying to communicate with somebody, you're going to notice that the person is going to be a little bit distant in communication during this period. So yeah, that's what I would get from the Venus retrograde. I'm going to go personal in it, because for me, like, when it comes to, there's obviously a very textbooky way of explaining how these planets affect us. But I'm going to be frank, I ain't no astrologist. I am a psychic, and I can only really go based on how I feel and how they affect me, and what I've noticed amongst people that are come to me as clients, and how they're affected during this time. Self-love is a big thing that comes up during the Venus retrograde, I find. Self-love, self-respect, understanding of self, and allowing yourself to really see yourself for who you are. I feel this is a time that people need to really work on not being scared of what they really want. I think that what we deal with a lot in society, and what we see it on Instagram every day, is we're better safe and best We're safe when we don't show our feelings. We're safe if we use our past to navigate. We're safe if we allow ourselves to judge people based on just little things that we do see. Like, it's all about trying to play safe and being stuck in the past. And I think we're coming to a time right now where during this Venus retrograde and things that are going to happen this year is people are going to start to allow themselves to take a chance again at love, to have hope and try again at love yet again. You know what I mean? And this goes for those that probably haven't been attached for a while or are single. Now, for those that are actually in a relationship, I would say the Venus retrograde happening and it going into direct will also allow those that are attached to understand the need of how important it is to verbalize what you want and what you expect from a relationship rather than shying away from it. That's another thing I feel when it comes to the Venus retrograde that's coming to the forefront. So yeah, I just thought I would do a quick explanation. Of course, you guys are probably going to have many questions, which you could just leave it in the comment box on each retrograde and what I mean and la-di-da-di-da-di. I just thought I'll post this video because, of course, on my House of Stars Instagram page, which I'll leave that in the description box for you guys to follow, a lot of people see me post things and they ask questions. And, of course, I don't have the time sometimes or even the energy to actually respond to your messages instantaneously. So I thought doing this video will be a little guide for you guys so that you have it to go over or be a guide to, so that you know exactly what it is that's going on during these planet shifts, and you have a guide to go to, which is this video. Of course, I think, of course, the next retrograde that we have, or any planetary shifts or anything that we have, I most likely will put up a video explaining the context of such, but feel free to start a conversation in the comment box, especially for those that are spiritual, that maybe dabble a little bit more in astrology. You could put that in the comment box as well. So that's it for today. This is my video. If you want me to do a reading on a celebrity, feel free to comment it in the comment box. If you haven't subscribed yet, do so. Share with a friend. And if you want to book a reading, you know exactly where to find me. So I do want to thank you so much for your time and rocking with me. May God bless you and the angels protect you. Good night.